Hi, boys and girls. We're going to be continuing with the story, The Clue at the Bottom of the Lake. Let's review what we've learned so far. Well, we know the setting was the lake, and then Lost Island, and then it happened at 2:30 in the morning. Let's review what happened at 2:30 in the morning. It involved Jeff and David, who are the brothers, and their dog, Rascal, woke them up. And they saw an aluminum boat with a shiny stripe push something off the side of the boat. So of course, they think it's a body and there's been a murder. So with their cousin Claire, they're going to solve this murder. But we can't leave out these important characters: Rascal, Tessie, and Yum Yum. So I did read already, so I'm just going to go back and start where I left off. And it's right here. And it's just really into chapter 2. So we're going to read the rest of chapter 2 and then chapter 3. This was the first summer the cousins had permission to explore Lost Island by themselves. Their parents said that as long as they stayed together with the dogs, they didn't have to be home until sunset. Jeff and David's mother was a veterinarian. She worked long hours at the Cabin Creek Animal Hospital. The boy's father, a forest ranger, had died last winter in an accident on Blue Mountain. Everything the children knew about wilderness, they had learned from him. Sunlight reflected off the glassy water as they took turns paddling. Because there was no wind today, their passage took just 30 minutes. After beaching the canoe, they looked back across the lake. Their cabins seemed small and distant. Forest was in every direction, with no roads or neighbors. The town was several miles away. "I love being way out here," Claire said. "Me too," said David. Jeff whistled for the dogs, then hefted his backpack. He enjoyed being the leader. "Okay, guys, let's go." They followed a narrow trail through scratchy pine and shrubs. Soon they came in the center of the island, and an ancient log cabin was now their fort. They liked the pine tree that happened to be growing inside, up through the roof. Its branches were perfect for hanging up clothes and gear. They stored tiny objects such as Band-Aids and packs of gum in the knotholes in the trunk. One of the old walls had rotted, so the cousins had filled the gap with a picket fence they'd brought over by boat. A little gate was now their front door. Seeing that Fort Grizzly Paw hadn't been disturbed by the island's late-night visitor, they took the path to the lookout tower. This was one of the tallest trees on the island, with branches like stair steps. Jeff and David had built a platform up on the top. And with Claire's help, they had made a pulley system between the fort and the tower. This was for delivering supplies and snacks. "I'll wait here with the dogs," Claire said, clicking on her two-way radio. "Keep me posted. Grandpa gave me a horseshoe from the ranch, so I'm going to find a good place to hang it. They're supposed to bring good luck." So here's the horseshoe. And I don't know if you guys know this, but when hanging a horseshoe, you have to hang it with the points going up. If you hang it upside down, all the luck will run out. So you have to hang it up like that. Bring you good luck. Jeff studied his compass while David took a pencil and some paper from his pack. He sketched a map showing the tip of the island and where they could see down into the turquoise water. Something white and oblong appeared to be lying on the sandy bottom. It hadn't been there yesterday when they surveyed the lake from the lookout tower. Southeast, Jeff said. "See it there?" "Yep, looks like an easy swim to." "Hey, Jeff, in the mud down there, see those big footprints? Big old man shoes like..." "Oh yeah," Jeff said slowly, focusing his lenses. "There's only one set." can't be ours, because none of us are ever out there alone. Well, someone's been there, said David. Jeff now turned his binoculars toward the far end of the vast lake. Miles away was the Blue Mountain Lodge and Marina. Tourist and fishing boats were launched from there. As Jeff's gaze followed the bike path into town, he said, "Uh-oh." David took a look, then said, "Claire will want to know about this." Jeff was already running his walkie-talkie. "Claire, do you read? Come in, over." "Here I am. What do you see?" "Over." She was at the base of the tree so the boys could hear her voice from below and also through the radio speaker. "Change of plans. We're leaving the island ASAP. Over." "Why as soon as possible? ASAP. Over." "Cop cars with flashing lights are in the park. Yellow police tape." Over. David was in too much of a hurry to use his radio. He shouted down to Claire, "Something's up. I bet it has to do with that boat we saw last night. Probably a murder." So then I went on to chapter 3, and this will come in important soon. It's a sketch pad with pencils. The town of Cabin Creek was in the mountains on a beautiful lake. It was usually peaceful, but today there seemed to be trouble. The cousins canoed back to their dock, then jumped on their bikes. The shortcut through the woods soon brought them to Main Street. They had left Rascal at home with old Tessie, but Yum Yum rode in the basket on Claire's handlebars, her dainty bell ringing over every bump. As they neared the park, they could see a crowd of people, mostly little kids. Yellow streamers surrounded the picnic area. Balloons floated above the jungle gym in swings. A clown was twirling a hula hoop while juggling green tennis balls. His orange wig hugged down to his shoulders. Claire coasted her bike to a stop. "You guys, it's just day camp," she said, disappointed. "I went here last summer. This is the party for their first day." "But I saw police cars with flashing lights," Jeff said. "And I heard a siren," said David, also disappointed. A man grilling hamburgers on a barbecue waved to the cousins. He wore a white jacket and a tall white hat. It was their good friend, Mr. Henry, the prized chef from the Blue Mountain Lodge. He was famous for his pastries, especially pecan pie. They had known him from the years he worked at the cafe in town, which was owned by Claire's parents. Mr. Henry loved children, so every summer he volunteered to help at day camp, and the lodge donated all the food. "Hello, my friends," he called. "Come, Yum Yum." The poodle pranced over to him, sat up on her haunches, and then lifted her front paw. It was her polite way of asking for a treat that he always had in his pocket. Mr. Henry patted her curly white head. I just want to go back to the picture. This is the chef, and there's the clown. And there's Yum Yum right there. "Here you go," he said. "So what brings you kids to the park?" "Hey, knock it off," he said to the clown, who had sneaked up behind him. He was squirting the chef with a giant water pistol. "I told you twice already to cut it out." Turning back to the cousins, Mr. Henry said, "Now, where were we?" Jeff explained about the police and the siren, and meanwhile David unzipped his pack and took out his sketch pad to draw the picnic. He didn't have a camera, so this was his way of keeping a journal. So if you don't have a camera ready and you want to remember something, the best thing to do, guys, is to draw a picture. "Indeed, police were here," answered Mr. Henry. Some teenagers in a sports car were zipping through town, but the cops stopped them right here in front of the park and gave the driver a speeding ticket. Now they're gone. Well, that answers that, said Claire. Will you stay for lunch? The chef asked. We have plenty. Thank you anyway, Mr. Henry. We're on our way to the cafe. The chef nodded. Be sure to say hi to your folks for me. After David finished his drawing, the cousins rode along the bike path to the Western Cafe. Claire's parents were friendly to everyone. Aunt Lily was plump and pretty, with red hair like her daughter. Uncle Wyatt wore a cowboy hat and cowboy boots and was always ready with a smile. He led the children to a booth with a view of the lake. Other than their fort on the island, this was their favorite place for serious meetings. The usual? Uncle Wyatt asked. He would be happy to cook anything they wanted, but they always ordered the same thing: cheeseburgers and chocolate shakes. Yes, please, they answered. The cousins scooted close to one another to whisper. After the waitress brought their food, they got down to business. Claire looked up from the brim of her baseball cap. You guys guessed wrong about the flashing lights in the park, and the police tape turned out to be the yellow streamers. So are you sure you really saw a body get dumped overboard last night? Tell me again, every single detail. It was a body, said Jeff, trying to sound sure of himself. Definitely, David agreed. He was peeling apart his burger to stuff it with potato chips. Why else would someone go all the way out to Lost Island in the middle of the night? Well, then shouldn't we tell the police? The brothers looked at each other. Well, maybe it wasn't a body, David answered, feeling embarrassed. What if he and his brother had guessed wrong after all? Come to think of it, Jeff said, it probably wasn't. Let's watch the news tonight. If there's been a robbery or a murder, and their voices were drowned out by teenagers at the next table. They recognized Rex McCoy as one of the busboys from the lodge dining room. He also worked at the Army surplus store. He and his younger brother Ronald were mean and often bullied their classmates, including the cousins. I sneaked out of the house last night, Rex boasted. My dad still doesn't know I took his boat. Yee-haw, what a blast. Except for one little problem. At the mention of the boat, the cousins kicked one another under the table, and suddenly Rex looked over at them. You there, he said. Me and Ronald are keeping an eye on you little shrimps, so don't get any ideas. Ha ha. The cousins left the cafe for home. They rode through the woods as fast as they could. The McCoys are still at it, David cried. If they find our fort, they'll smash it up. Claire was pedaling hard over the dirt path, which was bumpy with pine cones and twigs. Guys, she said, trying to keep up with them, what if Rex is the one from last night who dumped something in the lake? He and Ronald could be up to something. Ronald McCoy was Claire's age and in her class. Before school was out, Ronald stole my purple pen, she told the cousins. When I snatched it off his desk, he punched me in the arm. I don't trust those McCoys. Me neither, said Jeff. But first things first, we gotta find out what's at the bottom of the lake. ASAP. Do you know what that means? As soon as possible. So I'm gonna stop at chapter 4, and it's called Just Like a Body. It's always good to leave you wanting more. So let's review. So all of this, did we meet any new characters? We met the chef, and then we met the McCoys, who were the bully brothers. But you know, guys, well, I have two things here. We did hear a clue. A clue gives me a hint as to what I think might be the answer to our mystery. And the clue we have is that Rex took his dad's boat. So if you want to write that down, I think that's important, because that's a big clue. That could be the boat the boys saw. Now, something else was the settings. We had the lake, we had the Lost Island, we had 2:30 in the morning, but then we found out the name of their fort, Fort Grizzly Paw. Well, I was thinking about it, and if I had a secret fort on an island, what would I name my secret fort? What I would name mine is I would call it Fort of the Three Dogs. And this would be the plaque that would be hanging, 3 dog prints. So what I had the kids do is they thought of what they would name their fort. But don't forget, you really do need to write down the clue and the other setting and the new characters that we met. Because you never know when the characters may pop up again. I hope you're enjoying this story as much as I am. Okay, chapter 4 next.